Welcome back, folks. This is RGR, and we're going to talk Kansas City Chiefs as well as a little bit of the NFL because they overlap these days. I'm here with Dan Harms. How are you, Dan?
I'm doing well, and the first thing you guys probably notice is this right here, the old English D, and that has nothing to do with my love for the Chiefs. So you can just kind of ignore that I'm a Detroit fan everywhere else because I still love the Chiefs. It's not gonna have any problems. But so just don't take any offense to this. It's okay. I promise you.
It's not going to bother anybody. It's just baseball.
I love baseball. I assume some people also love baseball.
Not me. I don't know anything about it. I don't follow it. I'm lucky I follow KU basketball. It is like I'm a one-track mind. I pay attention to the NFL. That's it. But good for you and sticking to your roots. Folks, if you're tired of listening to a Detroit fan, that's okay. But sub and like anyway, we could use the help. So
a little bit.
We're going to have some fun today. This is one of our more relaxed like podcast types. So if you're new to the channel, we do the film thing. One of us does this pretty much every week. We do the rumor thing. We do a live Q&A on Monday nights, and then we do a podcast style video. And this is always fun because this is where we don't agree all the time, and I kind of enjoy those the most.
It's better that way.
So I think we're probably in the same boat that Patrick Mahomes really shouldn't have been fourth in the top 100.
Hear me out. I would have understood. Okay, I would have understood if Aaron Donald was number one. Maybe going down as the greatest defensive player to ever live. I can understand the mental gymnastics to be like he should be over the best quarterback in the game. But when you have him as the third quarterback on a list, that's when we start to dissolve into madness.
Well, and that's my big question to you, because obviously I disagree with him being fourth, but not entirely about the quarterback discussion. So what's your take on him being the third QB amongst those other two?
You could probably argue Russell Wilson, longevity. You know, he's a great quarterback held down by a inept head coach who refuses to throw the football, even though everything points to Russell Wilson being really good at it. He just wants to continue to run his team down with running football. So I can talk about Russell Wilson versus Patrick Mahomes, and that's not a problem.
Seahawks fans, don't freak out. He said inept. I don't think he meant inept.
No. I Pete Carroll does whatever he can to not let Russell Wilson throw the football. Does that make more sense?
He's supporting him. It's nice. It's uplifting.
Run first offense. That supports a quarterback, right? Lamar Jackson, great new generation of quarterbacks, runs the football. Not a greatly accurate quarterback when he's asked to carry a team and has 0 playoff wins. 0.
That's my big thing is you have two guys that are Super Bowl championships and one guy who hasn't been able to get his team, despite having one of the best rosters in the NFL. That's my big drawback is you don't see him being the plus. He's not the force multiplier that Russ and Patrick are. And that's where it comes down to me. But I do like to watch the guy play. I mean, it's not a coincidence that Mike Vick talks about Lamar.
Exactly.
That is great. But until it turns into, like you said, playoff wins in particular, championships specifically, I don't think that's really that much of a discussion.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with saying that we'd like to watch Lamar Jackson play. He's fun. Like when the Chiefs played him last year, that was a fun game when he was just making everybody miss and running for touchdowns and stuff. But you saw him throw the ball up on prayers. They were down almost 20 points in that game, and he had to throw the ball up. And we had a couple bad attempts. Unfortunately, Travarius Ward does not come down with a ball that he probably should have had, or at least get it knocked out of the air, and things go differently, and that score comes down to being a little bit closer than it really should have been. And that wasn't because of Lamar Jackson; it's because of bad defensive plays, and it shows you that when your backs are against the wall and Lamar Jackson is forced to carry a team with his arm, he can't do it. And that's no detriment to him. He wasn't a great quarterback throwing the football coming out of college. Everyone has things that they have to work on. Patrick Mahomes has just got into a better system when it comes to taking his strengths as a passer and making them better. Like that's just what Andy Reid did. And Lamar Jackson's just a really, really, really talented runner. There's nothing wrong with that. And
I think honestly, the thing that I get into arguments with people about is he's not that good a passer yet.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I think he still can be. I think he's made drastic improvements, to tell you the truth. But for me, this is the state of the league now, and he's not there yet. But I will say this. There is, and I'm sorry, Alex Okafor, I know this hurts, but there's a certain factor to this list when it's being voted on by current players. And that's the fear factor. It's not just how much do you see that guy's prowess. It is a little bit of, I don't want to play against him. And I can understand how some players might have voted that way because they are a little bit more scared of trying to tackle him, especially in open space.
No, I totally understand that. And I know people joke about him, being a running back playing quarterback, and you can say what you want to, but you put a running back or quarterback, and he still can't make some of the plays that Lamar can with his arm. He's still a talented quarterback, and he's got some improving to do, and he's going to be near the forefront of the NFL for years to come. And there's nothing wrong with that. And I think that people kind of take the fact that he's not as developed as a passer and try to attach it to him and saying that he's just not a very good quarterback. It's just not necessarily a true statement. Yeah. But I did want to hear what you thought was the biggest snub of the NFL 100. I think I know what it's going to be, but
I don't even watch the thing anymore. I don't pay attention. Did Mitch Schwartz make the list?
No.
Okay, then that would be it.
Exactly.
I mean, that's how little I pay attention to this because part of it is, and I think that while this is interesting, I think it's all clickbait that the big networks do, including NFL.com, that is up there with them, in order to get interest in a time that is the dead season before camp opens. At the end of the day, I would like to have these results because it's players that play against these, but I wouldn't publicize and I wouldn't act as though it's all pro voting. You know what I mean? There's a difference between the NFL 100 and what gets voted into the all pro. And I think that's a really significant difference.
It's like trying to say that pro Bowls should determine who gets into the Hall of Fame.
Right.
It really shouldn't.
If you took the fan aspect out of it, maybe, but I mean, there are a pool of reporters that do voting that I can have the respect for because they've covered the league and not just their particular team. And there are a lot of reporters who are not homers. Journalism and journalistic integrity is still out there. Journalism itself, I think, might be slowing down, but we'll cross our fingers that it'll come back.
You can blame the internet for that.
Yeah, well, so that was the big story of the week. We're just kind of reviewing, folks. I hate to give it that much run, but we did because we did.
We know you guys like it.
And that's part of the thing. We're trying to give you what you want, but we also are trying to, talk actual ball. And that's where it comes down to me. As we see them start to come in, I don't know if you saw some of the video that the Chiefs actually put out about how they're going about their process of the check-in. Mark Donovan walked them through the whole thing. What were your takeaways from that?
I think it goes to show you that they have probably the best situation in terms of safety in the NFL. Rick Burkholder, they all did a great job of separating everybody. They talked about, Matthew talked about, they don't know exactly how many players they're going to have in each area, but, it could be 5 or something like that, just a group of such just specific players in these different areas. And they did a really, really good job of preparing for this in a time where we didn't think that the NFL was taking it completely seriously because they didn't have everything down pat. They still were disagreeing with the NFLPA, but it goes to show that the front office, the owner, everybody from top down took it as seriously as they could and got it to the point where the players felt safe enough that if they didn't have personal issues like Damien Williams and LDT who wants to go out and continue to fight this, that they felt safe enough to come in and prepare for the season. I think that shows a lot about the organization.
Yeah, I do too. And I was really taken aback because I knew that this was coming, but I wasn't certain how they were going to do it. But the way you got a shot of them, folks, and I'll try to grab some of the footage if I can. 65 toss power trap shouldn't be too angry. Maybe if I throw a slide in here or something. But full face shields in meeting rooms. I mean, that's over and above. That is healthcare provider level of safety. And I think that's great to see. It looks like most people are buying in. I was really taken aback that they not only had enough space, and when I go to games, I try to sit at the club level because that gives me the best, I think, balance between being close enough and being high enough that I could see the All-22 happen. So I usually pick those tickets up used or secondhand, obviously, right? But to see those spaces that are usually meant for gathering be lined up with projectors, tables, and they're going to study in there.
Yep.
And then directly off of that, they're using some of the suites for some of the smaller position groups. I think they mentioned the tight ends, which, you're going to have 4 guys in a room with one coach.
Yep.
So that makes a lot of sense. I think that also bodes probably negatively towards ever having fans in those
probably
suites or in that level at all. But do you think that was enough? Do you think, what's your take on them being not only professional, and Rick Burkholder's a leader in this league, but being unique and using their stadium as much?
Yeah, I didn't expect them to start to do that. But it really goes to show you how they think outside the box with everything in their contracts and what they're doing with their players, the way they use, up and down and getting UDFAs for players that are currently on the roster. So they're just an outside the box type of organization when it comes to thinking. And, Brett Veach, Andy Reid, everybody is just so, I think they're in sync with everybody. They all know what they need to do, what they want to do, what they need to accomplish. And they're all usually on the same page, which is something you can't say for a lot of organizations in the NFL. So it's gotten a lot to get to this point for the Chiefs, but it feels like they have one of the best front offices, coaching staffs, owners in the entire NFL.
Yeah, I'd like you took the word that I was actually going to use, that out of thinking outside the box mentality. And that's really what it is, being creative. I don't know if anybody's seen or if you've seen some of the other teams around the league, and there's a lot of this plexiglass divider in the locker rooms where they're trying to use some of the lockers. That makes sense. The Chiefs is like 3 times as deep. So you're actually creating small separated booths that, you throw a mask on before you walk out of what it looks like it's got to be 100. It's probably 10 feet by 8 feet. So pushing 100 square feet. You walk out of that, you have a mask on. It keeps those bubbles even within the locker rooms better, so that the players can protect themselves. I'm more optimistic this week after seeing it than I was last week.
Yeah, and for them in getting ready for the season, it definitely does. We're just going to have to wait and see what happens in terms of playing those games and some of the teams that maybe aren't as prepared as the Chiefs have been to this point. That always is going to be the wild card throughout this season, whatever we get,
Yeah, there's no way around it. I'm looking forward to it. Your gut feeling after what we've seen the last few days with the opt-outs, the COVID-19 list, how optimistic are you that there's 16-game season?
I'm way more optimistic than I was before we had the NFL and the NFLPA agreements. Now that we've had all that, we've seen actual progress. I think that they can make it work. Now, I'm leaning more towards like maybe 15, 14, just because there may be a week that they have to take off completely if there's multiple outbreaks within different teams. Maybe they just have to tell everyone to take a week off. I'm not sure how that would work, but it's easier to do when you have games every week instead of every day. You can kind of build in extra week by week if you absolutely need to help cultivate some of that. So I'm much more confident than I used to be. I'll say that. Yeah,
and I like the fact that, like you said, the sporadic nature, the weekly nature of the league, I think that helps balance the fact that their rosters are 3-4 times the size of what we're talking in these other sports. But I do think that it's significant that they're monitoring everything that happens in the other sports. That's smart. You can learn vicariously through other leagues. But I don't think. Yeah, I mean, come on.
Just do the opposite of whatever they're doing.
We got to understand the bigger picture, folks. You can't play a game without traveling to another city. You can't travel to another city unless you get on an airplane. An airplane is an enclosed environment where everything recirculates.
They had a player meeting after they got positive results.
I know.
They had a player meeting. What are you doing?
I mean, and this is where I think some of the leagues have a disadvantage, and I can't throw it all at them, but this is why you hire healthcare professionals to help run that aspect of your team, because it's not going to happen in the NFL. I guarantee you that. They will lock it down way better than that. But there will be an outbreak, and I agree with you. And I think eventually it may come down. I'm still leaning towards 12 games because at the end of the day, you're going to see the volume tick up in the fall. It always does with any influenza-related disease. I think at the end of the day, you just got to get your conference games in, and anything outside of your conference and specifically your division, I think is all bonus at this point.
Yep, I can get down with that. Obviously, it's not ideal, but what are we going to do with what we've been given? It's just you're going to have to make it work with what you got. And if we can get anything more than 12, maybe we get 14, 15 games, that would be obviously better than we expected for the most part. And I think that if you can get those at least 12 in anywhere from 12 to 14 to 15 games, then we can have a discussion about the cap being bigger than that 175 million that they're talking about. Because you figure, even if people aren't in the stands, they're going to be watching at home. Ratings have doubled all across every sports for golf, baseball, NBA, hockey just came back today's Sunday or Saturday, so it just came back today. They're going to have an explosion of what people watching at home. That's going to help with their TV agreement. So I think that if we can get to that point, we can then have a discussion of possibly seeing less of an issue with the cap than we're talking about at that 175, whatever it is.
Yeah. And knock on wood, we'll see what comes of it. They got it. The revenue is going to be really interesting. I really want to see what it looks like visually compared to, say, some of the European soccer leagues where you have advertising all over surfaces that we've never seen because there's butts in seats. So that could change things significantly as well. That said, it's about the product on the field.
Yeah.
And clearly with Damien's decision, and folks, I have a video that you'll probably see Tuesday on that specifically and how it changed my mind when we heard from him, and I'll play you the clip. So look for that on Tuesday. And Damien's got a significant reason, and I think a completely legitimate one. Not that anybody who doesn't have someone going through severe treatment, anybody can opt out for any reason just because they don't feel comfortable. That's legit.
Yeah.
But he's got a significant reason. His mother is ill, and I get that. Immediately, the attention turned to Clyde Edwards-Helaire, as it should. I think this changes the forecast for him. And I said then that it priced Damien out because if Clyde clicks, there may not be room for him. I'm taking a second look at that only because I think the circumstance might lend the Chiefs towards – Chiefs are one of the few organizations in the league that show a little bit more loyalty than the others. So I could see him still making it back. But the excitement and the upswell for Clyde makes perfect sense. Outside of him, whatever you saw from the rookies this week or whatever you heard about them getting in and getting squared away, who's the other guy that you're most excited about in the rookie class?
Yeah, so I want to start this by giving you guys a tweet that I sent out yesterday. Today is Saturday, so it was Friday last week before you see this. And it's about Damien Williams' career when he, as a Chief, when he plays over 50% of the snaps. These are his numbers, 15 of those games. 1,006 rushing yards, 13 rushing touchdowns, 500 receiving yards, and 6 receiving touchdowns. Like, this is 15 games. This is including playoffs. Damien Williams, it's a loss just because you figure you're not getting those, especially not in the playoffs. You're not going to get those,
especially in the playoffs.
And that's the thing about Damien is that he 2 seasons we had Damien Williams, and he never had a fully healthy season in his career. And then he comes in the playoffs and he just explodes. That's something you can't just replace. And we don't ever want to downplay someone not being on this team. Damien Williams is not just for scoring purposes, but experience purposes, a key loss in that running back room. And I think that he would have helped Clyde a lot. So this is definitely not something to just kind of be like, yeah, we got better because Clyde's going to be taking the majority of those snaps. So he's a big loss. And I think for me, the backup goes directly to Darrell Williams. He was the most – we talked about this last time we were together. He's the most complete back on the roster outside of Clyde Edwards-Helaire in terms of production. He played a lot in the beginning of last season that I think that goes unnoticed. He was productive in the pass game everywhere that he was on the field. So he's got the best chance, in my opinion, to be the backup immediately because of snaps on the field in the system. Most time in the system. I think that makes a lot of difference, especially for this offseason. It's interesting to me that DeAndre Washington's contract is the guaranteed money is very small. And a guy like, for some reason, Elijah McGuire's contract is 100% guaranteed, and it's more than Washington. I think that's going to be something to look at, not necessarily in terms of making the team or being a backup, but maybe they decide to cut Washington just because his number is a little bit bigger or he gets waived. I'm not trying to say that Washington's a worse running back than McGuire is because McGuire's been on the practice squad the last season. So I think that being teammates with Pat has a little bit of headway in bringing him in. So he's got a little bit of.
It's helped Dieter.
Yeah. For some reason, I don't know why. And I got into arguments on Twitter with people about that. I don't like it, but
chemistry goes a long way. You got to give that its due.
I understand. And I get wanting to keep camaraderie together. I've got nothing against it. I don't see a point in keeping someone who's not going to be able to produce on the field. That's just me. Thompson presents an interesting topic of conversation just because he was a 6th round draft pick last year, and I thought he played pretty well in his extended snaps, specifically against the Raiders. They knew the run was coming, and he was still able to grind out a hefty amount of yards, get that touchdown at the end. So he's going to be probably round 3, I think, 3 or 4, and then he's going to be with him, McGuire, and Washington will be kind of battling it out to see who makes at the end of that roster. Ideally, I think they keep 4. That's just what I'm thinking.
That's kind of how I'm leaning too. I got to see how they get through with the offensive line. They might need bigger offensive line numbers on the 53-man than normal years, just in case somebody gets sick. So,
and I think maybe it leans more to practice squad numbers because they're gonna. They said they were expanding, right? So maybe you keep some more guys that you think are going to be able to produce in case someone gets hurt on the practice squad. And then the same with the running backs. Maybe they keep 3, but bring someone like Thompson down to the practice squad who they know his time in the system can produce in the offense. So if someone gets sick, then they can just level them up and not have to worry so much about finding a guy on the street or whatnot.
Yeah. I think right now they're talking about having a 16-man.
I think
so what is that? 69 guys?
Yes.
Is that how the math works out? So, right. I mean, I would just leave it at 75 and not cut past that. Just have a 75-man roster and everybody beyond 53s, whatever.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
But I think it's interesting. I think DeAndre Washington has the edge of the last 3 behind Darryl only because of his NFL snaps, and he's a guy that can function.
And pass protection.
Yeah, I mean, he's well-rounded. He can catch the ball. He can pass protect. I don't think you want to see him having to grind out yards.
Yeah.
But I put him ahead of Darwin, and Elijah I would put last. We'll see how many they keep. But I also think that Damien may have a chance to come back in kind of a Sammy role. It's different because there's only 1 starting running back, whereas there's 3 starting wide receivers.
Yeah.
But Sammy's a home run hitter in the playoffs, we've found, right?
Uh-huh.
This is why he's here to put them over the edge. Brett Veach has talked about that. Maybe Damien ends up being the same. We're going to have to see. Yeah. So outside, give me 1 rookie that you're pumped for.
It's got to be Snead at this point. Bo Pete's been put on, what is it, I forget what list he's on. There's too many lists now for me to keep up with, and Bo Pete got put on one of them.
Identify he's injured with something. We haven't seen him come
off.
He's
got a non-football related injury. That's what it was. Yeah. So he's on that. So it's got to be Snead, especially with Thornhill on the PUP list to start the season. We don't know if he's maybe not to start the season, but it's camp. We don't know if he's going to be activated to start, and he's the only rookie that has that corner and safety experience, and that could level him into a lot of playing time early. So I'm looking forward to seeing his versatility in action for this season.
I am too. And that was honestly when we saw Juan go to the PUP, which I kind of expected. You never know until you start practicing. So we're still going to have to see. But that was the whole impetus, I think, behind citing Chadrick Thompson. Armani should slide into that free safety role with Snead working somewhere in the mix.
Mm-hmm.
And I agree with you. I thought Willie would get the first snaps. If Juan isn't ready to go, if he isn't 100% on week 1, I think Snead might out-snap Willie Gay in the first few games.
Yeah, I agree with that. And, ideally, I would still prefer if Niang doesn't play guard. I don't want to see him playing guard early because I think that could not necessarily stump his growth as a tackle, but as a rookie, especially from this point of view, coming from college where you just had an injury that really hampered your senior, was it senior or junior, one of the two, and now you're coming into the NFL. You don't want to stunt a growth. It's for a guy who's going to be a tackle in the NFL and who's going to be one of the guys that replaces either Mitchell Schwartz, ideally Mitchell Schwartz at some point, because he's right tackle. I don't think you want to move him to left. That wouldn't, unless you're going to.
I don't either.
Unless you're going to take his development 3 years, maybe 2-3 years, and then slide him to left. Doesn't make sense to me. So,
or unless you really anticipate losing Fisher before Schwartz.
Yeah. I guess that's maybe next year they decide to cut Fisher. I don't know. And at this point, I'm not sure that Niang would be an upgrade to Fisher. I haven't seen him on the field. We don't know what he's going to look like. So, but yeah, so it comes to rookies, Willie Gay and Snead are definitely the two outside of the obvious Clyde Edwards-Helaire that's going to be getting playing time early, and Snead's probably going to outsnap everybody.
Yeah, I'm really interested because I think not only does he have the requisite talent, but I think he's got more playmaker in him than any of the other rookies right now. I like what Willie Gay brings. I'm excited for him, but I don't. From what the limited film that I've seen, I haven't seen him make that many plays that I've seen Snead make in terms of affecting the ball, taking the ball away in some fashion. Very much like that Willie seems pretty hyped up, pretty focused on what he needs to do. Yeah. I'm looking forward to that. So that said, we talked about the top three. They have some other guys. Bo Peep Keys, I think, will be interesting too. I think he's got once he's back, I think he'll have a chance to make some kind of impact. But so let's flip it then. Let's go to the second year guys, because I think they all have. Obviously, we talked about Thornhill, but I think especially the top three from last year all have a chance to make a big step forward and an impact on this team as well.
Yeah, and I know people are going to go right to McCole Hardman, and I totally understand that. But I'm going to take it a little differently because I think that Rashad Fenton has an opportunity. We don't know what – I haven't heard anything about Breeland. Have you? I have nothing. Maybe he plays. If he plays, then Fenton's snaps will be limited. Maybe they use him more in that third safety option they did kind of last year, kind of move him around. I don't know what they're going to do with him, especially because we don't know what's going to happen with Breeland. But in the event that Breeland goes down because of those suspensions – I think he could see a lot more time on the outside. Even they used him in the slot. Obviously, he's kind of got some versatility to him too. They used him as a third safety at times last year. So I think that Fenton offers a bit more upside as a press corner than he does necessarily as a slot guy that we saw last year too. I don't think they necessarily want him to be in the slot. Matthew's going to play the majority of his snaps in the slot. He'll move around a lot, especially when Thornhill comes back. But Fenton provides that physicality that that he brings to the table. We saw it when he was in last year. He's a physical guy, and I think he can do what they want Charvarius Ward to do, kind of the same way with his long speed. He gets up pretty well. He recovers pretty decently with his backfield athleticism, and he plays press coverage, and he's physical. So I think that he's a guy that can have some success early in the season if Breeland is not with the team because of his suspensions. And maybe he plays enough that Breeland is just kind of put on the bench when he comes back. Who knows?
Yeah, you never know. I agree with you. I do think that for Fenton, the contact helps him being able to set the route from the beginning and contest everything. I think helps him down the field. And a lot of what we saw when he did line up nickel, or like you said, that kind of middle safety role, we saw him doing a lot of the deep inversion drops.
Yeah, the cover two slot drops, just
right when he's not a guy that has that speed.
Yeah, that's not Matthew out there. I mean,
but you put Snead in that position, 4-3-8, and that all of a sudden changes. I expect to see even more wrinkles from the Steve Spagnuolo defense this year.
He's got guys to do that with, and especially if they bring Keys back, they have guys that just have that athleticism that you want to be able to mix things up and give offenses different looks, and being able to drop guys like Matthew from the slot anywhere on the field. So it should be a lot of fun seeing Spags with a more versatile and athletic secondary group.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's going to be great. Folks, that's where we're going to wrap it today. We're looking at the young guys that are going to play a role. Obviously, we know about the stars. The Chiefs got everybody back for the most part, except for the opt-outs. So we will continue. We'll check back in with you later this week with some more film. And Dan, have a good rest of your weekend.
You too, man. Just going to kick back and drink a few, probably.
Oh, that's what we need to talk about, too. Okay, so what beer's in your fridge right now?
Right now, it is the Cherry Lime Radler from Boulevard.
Always a good choice.
It's so good.
That's my brother's lawnmower beer. I don't have a lawn, so I don't have one of those. But
I'm just sitting on the couch drinking it.
Yeah, well, there's that. I mean, you're a sour fan too, right?
I am. Sours are my go-to. I don't know why. I've always found. I used to find beer not necessarily the best thing for me, and then I became kind of a beer snob. And
welcome to my world.
Yeah, exactly. When you drink a lot of craft beers, trying to find something you like, you then eventually become a beer snob. And sours have just jumped to the top of the list for me.
That's awesome. I actually am about to do a review over on the RGR Craft channel, folks. If you want to check that out, feel free. But it's out of your neck of the woods. It's from White Elm. It's one of their stouts.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
I do like some White Elm. They're not too bad.
No, they make me happy when I go visit. So,
yeah,
folks, that's it for us today. Thanks for drifting through the rest of our beer talk as well. We'll put that on something else. So, Dan, have a good one, and folks, we'll check you next time. Thanks for listening. If you're not subbed, go grab that now because we got way more to talk about. Have a good one, and we'll check you next time.